Welcome to this GoBright functional configuration video covering user roles. When configuring the GoBright portal for the first time, it's really important to understand how user roles are going to work for you and how it will allow access to different elements of the GoBright portal for the users assigned to that particular user role. So how do we create a user role? Let's have a look and discuss. If I go to my settings and I go to users, I can go over to user roles. We've got multiple user roles in our list, but we're just going to add a new one. I can give this a name, so I'll just call it video. And then this is where we start to make certain choices. Do we want the user to be allowed to make bookings? Do we want them to be allowed to make manage bookings or not make any bookings at all? That might be useful, for instance, if it's a catering company and they're not actually booking any rooms or desks, they're just there to handle services, so they'd have a profile that might be not allowed. Your general user would have the allowed to make bookings, and your senior managers would be allowed to make and manage bookings, so they could cancel bookings if need be. I'll just set this up as a general user at the moment, so I'm going to say they're just allowed to make bookings. The choice then comes in, do we actually want our users to be booking in all locations in our office, be that different floors and office buildings, or do we want to restrict where they can actually book? If we want to restrict, then we only allow for specific locations, and that's where we can make a choice. So if I only wanted this user to be able to book into Rotterdam, I can just select Rotterdam, and we could say they didn't want to be in Paris or Berlin. We could make this a little bit more granular as well by excluding spaces. So if there was a particular space that we didn't want this user to book, then we can just select that space. So that could be a boardroom, for instance. We can then scroll down and we've got, do we want to allow this access to the week planner? So if you've got a week planner license and this user is going to be granted access to the week planner, then you just need to tick the box. If not, we can just leave it blank. We then have the choice about how our office will work as far as our rooms, our desks and our parking spaces are concerned. For our rooms, do we want this user to be allowed to book outside the opening hours? As this is just a general user, then probably not. Do we want to limit in advance booking period? I'll say yes to that, and we're going to limit this user to 10 days in advance, and that's 10 working days because we're skipping weekends, for instance. The allowed to book days in advance start time, that can be set, say at 8 AM as an example. So these desks that are being booked 10 days in advance won't become available to be booked until 8 AM that 10 days before. It's whether you'd want to limit the duration of bookings. So if you wanted to limit that to say 15 minutes, for instance, then we could do that. And are you limiting the days of the week that this person is going to be allowed to book into the office? So we've got our days of the week, for instance. Those settings can be replicated within desks and parking spaces. There are a few changes. So in this one, for desks, we can allow recurring bookings. So that would just allow us to book those days in advance but have a recurring desk booking, and the same for our parking space. Again, we might want to limit in advance period as far as the booking is concerned, and same with the parking spaces, where we might want to limit if they were tight on parking spaces. Just because someone was coming into the office on every day, it might not mean they're guaranteed a parking space on every day. So we might want to just say, well, this person can only book on a Monday and Tuesday for a car parking space because spaces might be tight. Coming down now to some of these other settings for the analytics, then if it was a general user, they wouldn't be allowed to look at any analytics, but same choices as we had for the bookings. That is it allowed to see for all locations? So if it was a manager of a Paris office, for instance, you wouldn't want them to necessarily see all the analytics for a Rotterdam office, and vice versa. So in that case, we'd allow only for specific locations, same as we did for the booking. Same booking approvals, then we can allow for certain rooms to have a booking approval associated to them. That will need more consideration if you've got a Microsoft integration and your rooms are integrated with your Microsoft account. We can stop simultaneous bookings of desks and parking spaces. So that means that the general user wouldn't be able to have 2 desk bookings or 2 parking bay bookings. They're only limited to that one. The reason you've got that as an option is I might have a visitor coming in to the office and they're going to be there all day doing some work, and so I want to assign them a desk. They're not going to have a GoBright user account, and so if I'm in the office I might want to have a booking also in my name, but the desk would technically be worked on by my visitor. You could have hygienic mode that would allow for cleaning of desks, so that option again can be set up if people are going to be cleaning desks to make it more hygienic. With services, they're not going to be for a general user allowed to manage for a single provider or manage for all service providers, so that would stay as not allowed. If you were using a catering company, then they might be able to manage that area. For issue handling, then that would be again more a facilities function and also senior managers. So for our general user, we'd probably say not allowed. And for visit, these are settings designed for changing the visitor management as far as the user is concerned. It doesn't stop the user adding visitors. So in this case, we would say not allowed. And we wouldn't want the general user to have any system settings options either. So that would stay as not allowed. So with our user roles, we've now set how this particular user role, if it's assigned to a group of users, how that group will then interact with the GoBright portal when their role is assigned to them. Thank you for watching this GoBright functional support video. If further support is required, please go to our website gobright.com and visit our help centre.